I think the best thing about retirement, for me at least, is not having to travel. For many years I was traveling about 40% of the time, and none of that travel was like the shuttle to New York. It was always, it's the shuttle to Beijing from New York. I am sure that when I graduated from Princeton, that if they took a vote, which they never would have done, but if they took a vote as the least likely person ever to live outside the United States from our class, it would have been myself. When the football season finished, I was finished with football and I played basketball. Basketball, my senior year, I was fortunate enough to play with Bill Bradley, who was probably the best player ever to play in the Ivies in basketball. And so we played in the Final Four.
There's wild excitement in Dillon Gym as Princeton staggers Cornell 107-84 and thereby wins an unprecedented third consecutive title.
I got interested in international capital markets through the job I took as an investment banker. I got interested in the World Bank through that same job because if you were involved in international capital markets during that period of time, let's say from the 70s and throughout the 80s, the World Bank was really the principal player in international bond markets. When I first started in international finance, I think the telex was the premier means of communication back and forth between potential participants in the bond markets. That changed gradually, driven mainly by technology over the 70s and 80s. And towards the end of the 80s, you had much more integrated bond markets than you had in the 60s and 70s. I can remember when being treasurer of the bank, when it's, I guess, late 1990, early 1991, when the internet was just getting started, and we're all talking and looking at it and trying to think about, is this thing really going to work? Well, we'll see. The innovation in the markets were continually driven by the technology in the marketplace, new ideas, new thoughts, and that just really continued as it had before I joined the bank. The first global bond issue in late '89 was the result of, at least a year's worth of preparation by the Treasury Department. The idea was really initiated by my staff members, and I just joined along with the parade. There was skepticism, there was a concern that the objectives of the global bond, which were, several, among them we wanted to make more uniform the coupon paying environment between the various markets, i.e. semi-annual versus annual paying. We wanted to reduce the costs of issuance in terms of the front-end fees that were paid. We thought they were too high. We wanted to make the trading more liquid in the marketplace by not just having bonds traded in Europe or the United States, but having them traded on a global basis. And there was some concern that instead of doing all those good things I just mentioned, that it would go the other way, that it would widen spreads, be less liquid, etc. But as it turned out, it was very, very successful, and it was terrific. The changing marketplace, apart from the bank's issues, both in terms of the deepening of markets, the integration of markets around the world, and the new technology allowed a continuous increase in new ideas. And those new ideas would lead to new issuing techniques, new structures, new types of bonds. And one of the terrific things about the World Bank was the ability of the Treasury Department, the finance staff, to stay on top of these changes and to, and quite often, to lead those changes through innovative issues. When I joined the bank, my boss at that time was Ernie Stern, and I told Ernie, look, I promise I'll stay 3 years, even if things don't work, because I'd never worked outside the private sector. And if I really liked it, I would stay 4 years, and I would not be hanging around my end of the 5th year, which is the contract that I had. And I actually left 4 years to the date that I joined the bank. So I had a great time and just wonderful people to work with and for. We moved continents 7 times. Because we lived in Hong Kong for 3 years, we have had ever since then, and continue to have an abiding interest in China and Chinese art. So we have a lot of like a Neolithic vase up there. We have the Chinese horses. We have other Chinese art around the house. I guess the best thing you could say about any of the art that we have here is that it is eclectic. It looks like we picked it up as we traveled around the world, which, frankly, is probably true. The thing I would be most proud of after my 4 years as treasurer was that the reputation of the banks in international capital markets was as high as it was when I joined the bank. And I really put that down to the competence of the very good team at Treasury.